Hi again, everyone. I'd like to make this very short and sweet. This because it's Friday afternoon. I want to wrap it up. So this is a review video for both 483 and 683. Because we're near the end of the week, I'm going to review some of week 3 and introduce week 4. So I'll start with a few announcements. I'll talk a little bit about course performance and look at some quiz questions, and then we'll get right into reviewing main lessons from weeks 2 and 3 leading up to what I'd like you to be thinking about as we go into week 4. On the announcements on the Canvas page, I did post that Pentair is looking for a senior EHS specialist. This is primarily for our graduate students or our non-traditional students. You can go ahead and click on that. It says it looks like it requires a lot of experience, but it could be a new hire if they have the internship or work background. Another is that I still have, I had mentioned this, at least in my classroom version, a friend of mine who's near retirement is looking to bring on a highly reliable self-starter student to train as an ISO certified auditor who, after 2 years of working beneath him and being trained, could take over his job. And so it's a fast track, but it's, if it's something you'd want to do, reach out to me and send me your resume and I'll get it to him. Lastly, next week we have the internship fair or career fair on Wednesday, September 29th. This is primarily for those who can make it to campus. Otherwise, you can go on to UWW Handshake and see what's available. This is primarily for undergraduates, but some graduate students may find some opportunities. I just received this an hour ago. Looks like a client of M3 Insurance is looking for a recent grad or someone who's going to be graduating in the spring for a construction safety specialist position up in Wausau. So if anybody here, I had forwarded this on to Dr. Bookman, so she'll probably reach out to them for the fair next week. But in case anybody wants it, let me know. So here's a comparison for the online section. I've got the overall averages here for the quiz, the assignment. For those of you who aren't on the online or the face-to-face, the assignment is the weekly submission for the course binder, which you all are collecting and will have evaluated during the midterm. Then we've got time and touch. I did a t-test to see if it was difference between graduate students and undergraduate students. It was very significant for the quiz score, somewhat significant for the assignment, and the time not quite there. The touches were similar, so that was kind of cool. Then what I did is I compared the online to the face-to-face. Now there's going to be substantial differences in the delivery and what is expected, especially because of the weekly assignment versus the course binder. But what I have here for the face-to-face is I had them do two different quizzes. One is when it's face-to-face, I tend to do an open-ended quiz in class and we discuss it. But I've been challenging them to do the same multiple choice quiz that the online section's doing, but a paper version. And so that's the comparison right here for quiz 2 in the classroom. And this was unannounced, no notes. And so this was a big challenge for them. They scored an average of 7.7, median 8. So the online scored significantly better with an 8.4 for an average and a 9 for a median. But let's compare. It's more fair to compare the undergrad to the undergrad. And the average is very similar. The median's the same. The high and the low, that explains itself. So a lot of similarities there. As you can see here, that the open-ended is a little bit more difficult. They're scoring a little bit lower here. And then the grads did very well. As far as time, it's not fair to just look at their time because they spend 2.5 hours in the classroom with me, so that's part of their exposure time. So add 2.5 hours to that, and that would get them, right up around just like above the online undergrad, but still below the graduate. And then the touches are all within margin of error, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Here's the week 2 quiz results for the online section. You can see here the high was, we'll say the average is 84. Here is the multiple choice quiz handwritten by the classroom. You see their average is 7.7. I have here, they had 4 questions I'd like to look at closer because it was below 75%. I also looked at the ones that were online. So the first one online, 67% got this one right. Describe safety culture. And I think a lot of people chose the safety climate definition. But this is the actual definition from Dominic Cooper. from the slide. Which of the following safety management standards are promoted by OSHA? It's the Voluntary Protection Program. Kind of surprised few got this right. It was the same way with the face-to-face. I didn't spend a lot of time talking about it, but ANSI was the ASSP website, and then ISO is international. How does a system approach drive continuous improvement? Systems approach requires measuring, tracking performance beyond the worker. That's what it does. And this is from the classroom. They got got this one wrong. They chose plan, do, check, act. Geron's Pareto principle is the 80-20 rule. The significant few, the insignificant many, or the vital few, insignificant many. And then they also, a lot of them got wrong, the why do humans tend to blame the injured worker? The correct answer is attribution error. In week 2, not only did we discuss, again, the work system approach and how it's meant to have you look beyond the worker when they get hurt to the work system. I think a natural connection to that is root cause analysis, because that also attempts to look beyond the worker. The data that is collected through an in-depth, fair accident investigation or pre-accident investigation, that data is vital to the continuous improvement of the safety program, because continuous improvement is predicated on data analysis. That's quality management. And then we also covered safety management system standards as sort of guides, which contains elements of what we see here. But they're not an end-all be-all. It's like a recipe or a plan, but you have to put it in place, and it has to be customized to your workplace. In week 3, covered human error, and I remember I like the perceptual motorcycle as a basis for understanding human error, because a slip or lapse or mistake in any one of the phases of that model could result in unintended outcomes, one of them being injury. That humans desire fairness, recognition, opportunity to succeed, and that at any point in time, blaming them unjustifiably, or just blaming them even though it may be somewhat correct, causes inequity and unfairness, and that damages the relationship between worker and management. It damages any form of communication that may occur. That is information that is lost. With information lost, our data analysis is not as good. Therefore, our results won't be as good. Talked about OSHA record keeping, how ugly it is. I think it's a distraction to focus on keeping things off the record. It's better to hear more, calculate more, do more, which is why I'd introduced the concept of a learning culture. Seeking to understand to improve versus just trying to look good. And then we got into Heinrich and Bird a little bit, and that's going to come up again in week 4. Here's the preview. I'll be getting more into the distribution of injury data using the Heinrich and Bird pyramids and some additional models that are out there. Also looking at injury ratios, and there's 2 papers I'd like you to read on injury ratios, one by Revit, one by Manuel. And then, of course, this all kind of comes down to how do you prioritize when you're collecting data, and that is using a Pareto analysis. We'll talk a little bit about Pareto, and there's an article for you to read by Stevenson, I believe. And then in addition to that, this week we've got the Module 1 writing assignment. Now we're wrapping up Module 1 already. What you'll have is you'll have a scenario based on the first letter of your last name. And what you're going to do is take that data. You have to analyze the difference in the percent change. And then based on what we've covered in the first 3 weeks and this week, I want you to write a memo explaining to management what was the result of that study, because you've got pre and post data, and then using the lessons learned in this course, convince management in like a paragraph what they need to do and why in order to improve the safety program. I wanted you to think of it from the perspective of we have to get them to demonstrate that they're committed to safety, to be fair with workers, to that our collaboration with workers and supervisors is vital to understanding what we need to do to improve the design of work, to reduce the exposure to things that may harm them, and the data supports that. So you're going to work on a planning document, and I've got all that explained. You're going to then write a short memo, and I provided a basic model for it or a sample for it, and then you'll have a cover page for it, and it'll all be really good, and you'll submit that. The key word for, I'm going to do a key phrase this week. It's not on the board here, but the key phrase is continuous improvement. So continuous improvement is the thing I'll be asking either on an assignment or a quiz. So write that down, continuous improvement. Otherwise, that's all I got. Let me know if you have any questions.